financial sanctions, export sanctions, refusal to buy oil and gas, 17% inflation, car sales at a record low, and economical growth decline of between 8 and 15%. Don't swipe or click away, because here is why Russia's economy is about to crash. The official forecast for Russia's GDP is set on negative 7.8% in 2022. Now, if any of these numbers are true, this should make Vladimir Putin cringe. Every day that the war in Ukraine is raging, Russia will have to spend $1 billion. In a month, that's $30 billion. Now, add on top of that all of these sanctions imposed on the country by the West, and you have a Russia that's going to crumble from within. But let's break down the numbers even further. Business Insider stated that 2022 alone will wipe out an astonishing 15 years of economic growth. In 1 year, Russia could be back into economic chaos not seen since the late 1990s. If you remember, back then the economic unrest was caused by a change in their political system. That was inevitable. This crisis, however, is completely avoidable. The question is, will Russian officials decide to put a stop to it? Or do they think that their country can withstand the stress? Aside from the IFF, major financial institutions like Goldman Sachs recently changed their forecast. Initially, they believed that the Russian economy will grow by about 2% this year, but that was before the Ukrainian conflict. Now, they expect the Russian economy to contract by an astonishing 10%. Capital Economics wasn't so generous, and they said that they expect the Russian GDP growth to smash that like button just like you should if you haven't already. But no, in all seriousness, they expect it to fall 12% this year. In addition to this, Goldman Sachs top analysts predict that these sanctions will make exports fall by 10%, while the country's imports fall by 20%. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. While European, US, and UK economies are slowly starting to panic amid a 5 to 8% inflation rate, an unprecedented rate in the last decade, Russia will have to find a way to deal with 20% inflation. The price of imports will rise as the Russian ruble falls. And on top of that, the withdrawal of all EU and US companies from Russia will worsen the problem by decreasing the supply of much-needed goods. With rates like these, investing and borrowing among the population will be practically non-existent. And that's something the banking system cannot support. Some Russian analysts like Medina Krustaleva predict that this will be worse than the 90s economic downturn. Why? Because the government will have to worry about producing some much-needed commodities that were supplied by the Western countries. In the 90s, it was backward. They knew that the crisis they were going through would increase productivity, and the Russian population was hopeful. Now, the crisis will only lead to decreased productivity. They are expecting retail trade to fall between 8 and 9%, as the prices of common goods are soaring through the roof. Car sales have also fallen almost 100%. The only Russian car manufacturer that's still in business is Lada, and they're calling the new car the most affordable new vehicle in Russia. They even gave it a catchy name, anti-sanctions car. Well, we looked into this matter a little deeper, and we found out that because Russia can't import many of the necessary parts for their new cars, the new Ladas come with no airbags, no anti-lock braking system, no seatbelt protectors, and no electronic stability control. Suddenly, most affordable isn't the benefit you thought it was. These shopping malls are quieting down. Western brands have either pulled out completely or work in a restricted capacity, and the popular US fast food brands like McDonald's, Burger King, and KFC have long been gone. This left room for local businessmen to pick up the tab and start investing. They came up with their own Russian fast food chains and are seemingly doing pretty well. Technology is getting worse and worse. All of the technology brands in Russia, and most of the world for that matter, came from the EU and the US. This means that companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook are gone from the country. They will either have to start making their own computers or find some other way to source the technology. We know that China can't help them with technology imports because they can't face secondary sanctions from the West for doing so. The financial sanctions are probably the worst of all. Because of them, Russia is defaulting on its debts for the first time in almost 25 years. They have the $100 million to pay, but they are all locked up in financial institutions outside of the country. It's estimated that the US holds $600 million of Russia's money locked up in US banks. The Russian central bank can use its $630 billion of reserves because they're all in foreign currency. On top of that, they have been removed from the SWIFT financial messaging system. This will make it much harder for Russian banks to communicate with foreign banks, and it will only delay payments. Not all of that money from oil and gas will be delayed for months on end. Together, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union have gone after the big fish. They are sanctioning over 1,000 Russian businessmen who have a lot of money to burn. The West thinks that these individuals are close to the Kremlin, so they're putting sanctions on their businesses as well. Even their super yachts sitting on foreign European shores are being targeted. They can no longer get a golden visa from the UK. In the past, it was easy for wealthy Russian businessmen to buy their British residency. But now, that's no longer the case. Even the skies are charted. Russian planes cannot fly over EU, US, or UK territory, and they've also banned the import of luxury goods to Russia. Importing Russian gold is also forbidden. Much like the Lada, Russia's economy is still functioning, but it's missing some of its vital parts. In other words, there are no airbags to dampen the impact of a crash. Do they think about relenting? Well, they've sanctioned the West too. Over 200 Russian products are prohibited to be exported. The only glimmer of hope right now for the Russian economy is its national currency and its exports. The European Union relies on Russia to supply 1/3 of its natural gas requirements. They've been pressured by the US to cut the import of Russian gas altogether, but the EU declined. That would only devastate their economy. On top of that, Russia is the 3rd largest exporter of oil in the world. This puts it in a favorable position when it comes to investing. What does this mean? Well, since they've been cut out from the SWIFT banking communication system run by the US, and all of their foreign currency reserves have been frozen up, the ruble remains the only way for them to get paid. The EU still needs oil and gas, and they have to buy it with Russian rubles. The demand for Russian rubles keeps the currency strong and in a favorable position, which is probably the only reason the economy didn't cave already. Peace talks are intensifying recently, and Russia might decide to stop the invasion of Ukraine, or as Putin calls it, a military operation. Speaking of currency, we know that with the summit of the BRICS countries, there are talks between Russia and China for a new reserve currency. They are either working on replacing the US dollar with the Chinese yen and using that for foreign exchange, or they are working on developing a brand new cryptocurrency that will shake up the monetary systems as we know it. After all, BRICS has a population of 3.22 billion people and is responsible for 43% of the world's GDP. On a related note, who do you think will give up first, Russia or the EU? You can tell us in the comment section below. If you'd like more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of them. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.